The dark secret of the Tuskegee experiment. They were promised free treatment, but instead they were used as silent subjects in one of the darkest experiments in American history. In 1932, during the time of the Great Depression, life was already extremely hard for many people in the United States. Poor communities were struggling to survive, especially African American families in the rural South. In a small town called Tuskegee, Alabama, hundreds of men were about to become part of something they didn't fully understand, something that would change their lives forever. The United States Public Health Service began what they called a medical study. They recruited around 600 African American men, most of whom were poor sharecroppers with little education and almost no access to health care. The offer sounded like a blessing. Free medical checkups, free meals, free transportation, even burial insurance. For men who could barely afford basic needs, this seemed like a rare opportunity. They trusted the doctors. They believed they were finally going to receive help, but they were never told the truth. Out of the 600 men, about 399 were already infected with syphilis, a serious and potentially deadly disease. The remaining men were used as a control group. The purpose of the study was not to cure them, but to observe what would happen if the disease was left untreated. Imagine that. Doctors weren't trying to save lives. They were watching people slowly suffer on purpose. At the time, there was no effective cure for syphilis, so the experiment continued for years. The men trusted the system. They showed up for checkups. They followed instructions. They believed they were being cared for. But behind the scenes, something disturbing was happening. In the 1940s, a major breakthrough changed everything. Penicillin was discovered as a highly effective cure for syphilis. It quickly became the standard treatment worldwide. This should have been the moment the experiment ended. This should have been the moment the men were finally treated and saved. But that never happened. The doctors made a shocking decision. They chose not to treat the men. Even worse, they actively prevented them from getting treatment elsewhere. Some participants were even removed from military programs where they might have received proper medical care. The goal was to continue the study, no matter the human cost. Years turned into decades. The men grew older. Their health declined. Many suffered from severe complications, blindness, mental illness, organ damage. Some died painful deaths. Others unknowingly passed the disease to their wives. Children were born with serious health problems. And still, the experiment continued. All this time, the men believed they were receiving treatment. They had no idea they were part of a cruel and unethical study. They trusted the very system that was failing them. For 40 long years, the truth remained hidden. Until 1972. A whistleblower finally exposed the experiment to the press. When the story broke, it caused outrage across the United States. People were shocked that something like this could happen, not in a distant past, but in modern times. The government faced intense criticism. Investigations were launched. The experiment was immediately shut down. But for many, it was too late. Lives had already been destroyed. Families had already suffered. Trust had already been broken. In 1974, a settlement was reached and the surviving participants received financial compensation. Years later, in 1997, U.S. President Bill Clinton officially apologized on behalf of the nation. He acknowledged the deep injustice and the pain caused by the experiment. But an apology could never undo the damage. The Tuskegee experiment became a symbol of betrayal. It exposed the dark side of medical research and the dangers of unchecked power. It also led to major changes in how studies are conducted. New laws were introduced. Strict ethical guidelines were created. Informed consent became mandatory. Today, no medical study can legally happen without the full knowledge and agreement of participants. But the story still raises an important question. How could something like this happen for so long without anyone stopping it? The answer is uncomfortable. It was a mix of racism, power, and silence. The victims were poor, they were uneducated, and they were ignored. Their voices didn't reach the world until it was almost too late.